I 24F have this dilemma that's been brewing with my group of friends for a while now, and last night was kind of the tipping point. For some context, I have a close-knit group of friends 24M, 23F, 26M that I've known for years. We try to grab dinner together every week or two, depending on everyone's schedules. It's usually something I look forward to because it's a chance to unwind, catch up on what's been happening in everyone's lives, and just enjoy each other's company. Most of the time, these dinners are full of laughter, gossip, and a lot of fun. We genuinely get along well. But there's one thing about these dinners that drives me absolutely crazy. Without fail, they're all super adamant about splitting the bill evenly for ways, no matter what anyone orders. I'm talking, every single time, we'll get to the end of the meal, and someone will go, okay, let's just divide it by 4, and everyone nods in agreement. It doesn't matter if one person ordered a $15 burger and another person got a $75 seafood platter, it's always divided equally. Now, I know a lot of people prefer this because it's supposed to make things simpler. You don't have to sit there and pick apart who got what, you just slap down your card, and everyone pays the same amount. And, honestly, if we all ordered around the same amount, I wouldn't even care. But that's not what's happening here, and it's never been fair to me. Here's the thing, I'm not a big eater. I have a pretty sensitive stomach, and if I eat anything heavy, I'll be feeling sick for the rest of the night, maybe even the next day. So, I tend to stick to lighter options. When we go out, I'll usually order a salad for my main course. I'm not talking about those massive salads with a ton of toppings and dressing, either. I'm talking about a simple salad, lettuce, a few veggies, maybe some grilled chicken if I'm really feeling it. And that's it. It's not because I'm on a diet or anything, it's just what my stomach can handle. Plus, I don't drink alcohol, I've never been a fan, and I'm not really into sugary drinks either. So, while my friends are ordering cocktails, beers, or glasses of wine, I'm just sipping on a glass of water. Occasionally, if I'm in the mood, I'll treat myself to a San Pellegrino or a sparkling water, but even that's a rare indulgence. Meanwhile, my friends, well, they're kind of the opposite of me when it comes to eating out. They love to indulge, and I mean really indulge. They're the kind of people who get excited when they see a restaurant's drink menu, and they'll order fancy cocktails or expensive glasses of wine without a second thought. I'm talking about $18 cocktails and $25 glasses of wine, and they'll usually have more than one throughout the night. And don't even get me started on the food. They'll go all out. Appetizers, they're ordering at least 2, sometimes 3, and they're always the pricier options, things like calamari, oysters, shrimp cocktails, or some kind of fancy charcuterie board. Then, when it comes to the main courses, they don't hold back either. It's steaks, seafood platters, lamb chops, you name it. They're the type of people who enjoy the whole experience of dining out, and I get it. I totally understand wanting to treat yourself when you go out. But when they do this, I'm usually sitting there, picking at my simple salad, while they're passing around plates and diving into dishes that cost 3, 4, 5 times what mine does. I can't even begin to count the number of times I've been left feeling annoyed when the check comes. It's this weird, uncomfortable moment where I know I've barely contributed to the total cost, but I'm being expected to pay an equal share as if I had. My part of the bill is usually around $15, $20 tops, maybe $25 if I splurged on a drink. But when we split it evenly, I'm forking over $40, $50, sometimes even $60, depending on how much they decided to splurge that night. It's not like I haven't tried to bring it up before. I have. I've mentioned that I don't drink and that I usually only get a salad, so maybe we could just pay for what we actually ordered. But every time I try to suggest this, they shut me down. They say I'm being a cheapskate, that it's just easier to split it evenly, and that I'm making things awkward for everyone by not going along with it. Come on, don't be that person, they'll say, or it's not that big of a deal, just go with the flow. And it makes me feel guilty, like I'm the bad guy for not wanting to subsidize their expensive meals. They've even gone as far as to joke that they won't invite me out anymore if I keep being cheap, which, even though I know they're kidding at least, I think they are, it still stings a little. I don't mind paying my share. I really don't. But I don't see how it's fair that I'm consistently paying double or even triple what I actually owe just because my friends want to indulge. If we're all ordering similar things, that's one thing, but it's never like that. I'm tired of feeling like I'm being taken advantage of every time we go out. Honestly, I don't think it's even about the money at this point. I do just fine financially, and the extra $20 or $30 that I end up paying each time isn't going to bankrupt me or anything. But it's the principle of it. It's the fact that they don't even seem to realize, or maybe they just don't care, how unfair it is for me to be paying for their cocktails and appetizers when I'm barely eating anything. It's been like this for months now, and I've just been quietly seething about it, trying not to let it get to me. But last night, I think I finally hit my breaking point. Fast forward to last night. We had another one of our dinners planned, and as the time got closer, I could already feel my mood souring. It was a familiar feeling, this mix of annoyance and frustration that had been building up inside me for weeks, maybe even months. I knew exactly how the night was going to play out, and I was dreading it. We were heading to this new place downtown, one of those trendy spots that everyone's been talking about, with a menu that screams special occasion and a drink list that might as well have been printed on gold leaf. I checked out the menu online beforehand, and as soon as I saw the prices, I just knew we were in for another one of those ridiculous, overpriced dinners. And of course, I knew the bill splitting was going to be an issue again. All afternoon, I was having this internal debate, trying to psych myself up to say something this time. I was determined to stand my ground. I kept thinking, maybe this is the night I'll just insist on paying for what I order, no matter how awkward it gets. But at the same time, I could already hear their voices in my head, calling me a cheapskate, rolling their eyes, making me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. It was like I was already losing the argument, and we hadn't even sat down to dinner yet. But then, as I was getting ready, an idea hit me out of nowhere. A petty, almost ridiculous idea, but it made me smile for the first time all day. If they're going to force me to pay extra every single time, if they're going to make me subsidize their expensive drinks and elaborate meals, then maybe it was time to turn the tables a bit. Maybe it was time to give them a taste of their own medicine. I thought about it for a minute, and the more I considered it, the more I realized how satisfying it would be. I know it was a little childish, but I was tired of being the one who always ended up feeling resentful at the end of the night. If they wanted to split the bill evenly, then fine, but this time I was going to make sure I got my money's worth. So, we get to the restaurant, and right away I can tell this place is everything I expected. It's dimly lit, with sleek, modern decor and those tiny little tea lights flickering on every table. There's soft jazz playing in the background, and the place is packed with people dressed up like they're ready for a night out. The host leads us to a table near the back, and as we sit down, I'm already bracing myself for the usual routine. My friends are all in high spirits, excitedly flipping through the menu, pointing out things they want to try. 24M immediately zeroes in on the cocktail list, reading out names like Smoky Negroni and Lavender Gin Fizz, while 26M and 23F are debating between getting a seafood tower or going straight for the steak. Normally, I'd just open the menu, find the section with the salads, and make a quick, safe choice. I'd be thinking about my stomach, reminding myself that if I strayed too far from my usual order, I'll probably regret it later. But not this time. Nope, this time I was going to be petty, and I'll admit, I was kind of excited about it. I had spent so many nights sitting there quietly, feeling a knot of frustration in my chest as I watched them sip on their third cocktail, knowing I was about to drop $50 on a $15 salad. Tonight, I was flipping the script. When the waiter came to take our orders, I didn't hesitate. I looked right at the drink menu, found the most expensive wine they had by the glass, and said, "I'll have a glass of the Cabernet Sauvignon." I could feel my friends' eyes on me, like they were a little surprised, maybe even curious, but I didn't stop there. "Actually, make that 3 glasses," I added, without even looking up. I wasn't planning on drinking 3 glasses of wine. I don't even like wine that much, but it was the principle of it. If I was going to be forced into paying for drinks, then I was going to order drinks. I could see 23F raise an eyebrow, and 24M gave a little chuckle, like he thought I was joking, but I just smiled and handed the menu back to the waiter. I don't know what they were thinking, but I could feel a small, triumphant thrill bubbling up inside me, and I wasn't done. Next, it was time for the appetizer. Normally, I skip the appetizers. I don't really like heavy, rich foods, and I hate the feeling of being stuffed before my main course even arrives. But if we were going to be splitting everything evenly, then why should I sit there empty-handed while they're digging into plates of fried calamari and shrimp cocktail? I'll have the charcuterie board, I said, casually, as if I ordered it all the time. I made sure to pick one of the pricier options on the menu, the kind that comes with all sorts of fancy cheeses, cured meats, and little gourmet touches that you can't even pronounce. By now, they were definitely noticing. Wow, you're really going all out tonight, huh? 26M said, with a bit of a laugh, and 23F nodded, saying something about how she'd never seen me eat like this before. Normally, that might have made me feel self-conscious, but tonight, I just smiled and said, yeah, why not? It's a special occasion. The thing was, there wasn't any special occasion. But I was done playing nice, done pretending like this bill-splitting thing didn't bother me. I was going to enjoy myself, even if it meant being a little petty. When it came time to order the main course, I went all in. I didn't even glance at the salads. Instead, I picked out the most expensive item on the menu, a beautifully described steak served with truffle butter, roasted vegetables, and some kind of fancy sauce. It was the kind of thing I'd never usually order, because I knew I wouldn't be able to finish it, and I'd spend the rest of the night regretting it. But tonight, I was feeling bold. I'll have the ribeye steak, I said, and I could see their jaws almost drop. 24M looked like he was about to say something, but he just laughed instead, like he didn't quite know what to make of this new side of me. The whole time, I could feel my heart racing a little. I knew I was being ridiculous, and part of me felt a little guilty, but another part of me was feeling vindicated. I was tired of being the one who always got the short end of the stick. If they wanted to split the bill, then I was going to make sure I got my share, even if it meant acting out a little. By the time I ordered dessert, a slice of tiramisu that cost more than my usual entire meal, I could tell they were starting to get a little suspicious. 23F made a joke about how I was letting loose for once, and 26M asked if I'd won the lottery or something, but I just smiled and shrugged. Inside, I was bracing myself for what would happen when the bill finally came, but on the outside, I played it cool, like I wasn't even thinking about it. The whole dinner, they kept glancing over at me, like they were waiting for me to say something, but I just sipped my wine, nibbled on my steak, and acted like everything was perfectly normal. I knew they were going to be annoyed when the bill came, but I was past caring. If they wanted to split the bill, they were going to have to deal with the consequences. And boy, did they. When the waiter finally brought the check, it felt like time stopped for a moment. I could see him approach our table with that little black folder, and as he set it down, there was this brief, silent exchange of glances between us. Usually, I'm the one who feels anxious at this part of the night, dreading the inevitable moment when they'll suggest we split the bill for ways, and I'll have to force a smile and agree. But tonight, I just sat there, calm and almost curious, waiting to see how they would react. As 26M reached for the check, there was this pause, a moment where he opened it, looked down, and his eyes widened just a bit. I could almost see him do a double take, like he was trying to process the numbers. And I wasn't surprised. I had been paying attention all night, mentally adding up everything I ordered, and I knew exactly how much damage I'd done. The total was just over $600. I could see his eyes flicking back and forth as he skimmed the list of items, probably noting the 3 glasses of expensive wine, the charcuterie board, the steak, and the dessert. Usually, I'm the one looking over the check, anxiously wondering how much more I'll have to pay than my meal actually cost. But tonight, I was the one who'd gone all out, and it felt strange, almost empowering. The atmosphere around the table shifted. It was subtle at first, just a slight drop in the volume of conversation, but I could feel it. My friends were trying to act like everything was normal, but there was an unspoken tension in the air. 3F was still chatting about something she'd seen on social media earlier, but her voice had this slightly forced cheerfulness to it. 24 was scrolling through his phone, but I noticed he wasn't really looking at the screen. 26 cleared his throat, glancing around the table before he finally spoke up, sounding hesitant. So, should we just do the usual and split it 4 ways? There was a moment of silence, like they were all waiting for someone else to speak up. I could see the look of resignation on their faces, a mix of reluctance and expectation. Normally, this would be the part where I'd reluctantly nod along, maybe make a half-hearted joke about how it's no big deal, but tonight I just sat there. I didn't say a word. I didn't even try to pretend that I was okay with it. I just leaned back in my chair and waited. They exchanged a few more glances, as if they were silently trying to communicate with each other, but no one was willing to be the first to suggest something different. And so, just like that, it was decided. We were splitting the bill evenly. 600, divided by 4. We each ended up paying about $150, which, for once, was actually pretty close to what I had spent on my own meal. I had no idea if they were doing the mental math, if they realized that, for once, I wasn't the one subsidizing their food and drinks, but I could tell that they were irritated, even if no one was saying it out loud. As we handed over our credit cards, I could feel this odd mix of emotions bubbling up inside me. On one hand, there was a part of me that felt a little bad. I knew what I had done was kind of petty, and it wasn't like me to intentionally make things uncomfortable for my friends. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a tiny bit satisfied. I had spent so many dinners silently fuming, biting my tongue, and just letting it slide every time they dismissed my attempts to bring up the unfairness of our bill-splitting routine. For once, they were the ones who had to deal with the awkwardness, the frustration, the realization that things weren't as simple as they wanted to believe. We finished paying, but the whole vibe was kind of off. Usually, by the end of the night, we're still joking and chatting, planning our next hangout or suggesting other places we should try. But this time, it felt like there was a shadow hanging over the table. 23F kept glancing at 26M, like she was waiting for him to say something, but he just stared down at the receipt, his jaw clenched. 24M was fidgeting with his phone, pretending to check messages, but I could see the little furrow in his brow. As we were getting up to leave, I could feel their eyes on me, like they were expecting me to explain myself, maybe offer some kind of excuse or justification for why I'd ordered so much. But I didn't give them anything. I just smiled, grabbed my jacket, and thanked them for another great dinner. The walk to our cars was awkward, too. Normally, we'd linger outside for a bit, talking and laughing, but everyone seemed eager to head off in different directions. I could tell they were irritated, but I wasn't going to be the one to bring it up. If they had something to say, they could say it. I woke up this morning to a long, passive-aggressive message from 26M in our group chat. It was like a wall of text, and I could tell he had spent a lot of time crafting it. He started off by saying he didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but it was clear that he was pissed. He basically accused me of acting out and being petty, and he said that if I had a problem with the way we handled the bill, I should have just brought it up directly instead of pulling a stunt like I did last night. It stung a little, reading his message. He said I was being immature, that my behavior had made things awkward for everyone, and that I should have just been honest about how I felt instead of trying to make a point in such a passive-aggressive way. To 3F and to 4M chimed in, too, echoing his sentiments, and suddenly I was the one who felt like I had to defend myself. It wasn't like I hadn't tried to bring it up before. I had, multiple times, but every time they brushed me off, making it seem like I was the one being unreasonable. And now, after one night of me playing by their rules, they were all acting like I was the villain. It's hard not to feel conflicted. Part of me knows I probably could have handled it better, that I should have just been more direct and said, "Hey, I don't think it's fair to split the bill this way," instead of ordering more than I actually wanted. But another part of me feels like this was the only way to get through to them, to make them understand what it feels like to be on the other side. A few days after the whole ordeal, I got a message in our group chat. I hesitated for a moment before opening it, half expecting more passive-aggressive comments or complaints about my behavior from the other night. But instead, I was surprised to see a more conciliatory tone. It was 26M again, saying something like, "Hey, I know things got a little tense last time, but we were thinking of getting dinner again this weekend. This time, everyone can just pay for what they order, no tricks or anything." I reread the message a few times, trying to gauge if there was some kind of catch, but it seemed genuine. I could tell they were trying to smooth things over, and maybe they'd finally realized how unfair the old arrangement had been. I felt this wave of relief wash over me. For once, I wouldn't have to worry about paying way more than my share or feel anxious when the check came. I replied, saying I was down and that I appreciated them suggesting it. It wasn't a grand apology or anything, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Maybe my little stunt actually got through to them, and now we could go back to enjoying our dinners without all that underlying tension. It was a small win, but it felt good to finally have things on more equal terms. So, am I right for doing what I did? Should I have found a better way to handle it, or was I right to finally stand up for myself, even if it was a bit petty?